You're listening to Funny Peculiar with Jeff Downs.
So it's a special Funny Peculiar podcast, and I'm coming from the TACCon convention 2018 in Blackpool, and I'm going to do a special that's going to come out later with everybody I've chatted to at the convention and all the different acts and performers. But I'm here today because of a lovely guy called Johnny Strange. Hi Johnny.
Hey, how you doing?
Not too bad. And Johnny, a big thanks to Johnny for inviting Funny Peculiar podcast here today to the convention, i.e. me, to go around, and I've managed to chat to so many people, and I've seen you perform, Johnny, this morning. You've been doing various performances, sword swallowing, and I did say at one point there's someone got married today, which was rather nice, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's a little bit different.
And they were bringing on a table with their cake, which I thought was to do with you, and they brought on two really nice. I thought, what the hell's Johnny going to do with two cakes? But actually, it was the trick afterwards. I think you did with your sword swallow, which is the sword swallowing trick with the barrels attached. So just for people listening, just explain. And it's your original trick, this as well, or act. What does it entail?
Yeah, so basically, I'm a sword swallower. So there's not many sword swallowers about. There's around 60 sword swallowers in the world that we know of. And it genuinely is a dying art. But of course, with performing, this is my 5th year performing at Blackpool TACCon. You always have to sort of come up with something new. So there's lots of variations on sword swallowing, but this variation is it's basically a sword, and attached to it is like a T-bar.
Right.
And then hanging off the ends of the T-bar are two barrels. So the whole stunt itself is to swallow the sword and then lift everything up just using the sword that's been swallowed. So the barrels are both hanging in the air.
And that was, and again, it was quite an early performance, and I was there in amazement and astonishment. And then basically, when you did your big sort of now for a round of applause, there was a sort of like, hey, and it's like, the guy's got a sword in his throat with two barrels. Can we give him some more, please? But do you get? And I've spoken to a few sort of circus performers, that type of stuff. Do you get different reactions from audiences, and are they quite underwhelmed by something that seems, or are they overwhelmed? What's the normal experience you've had?
That's actually a really good question, because yes, I was on quite early today. I think doors open at 10 o'clock, and we were on at, I was on at 10:30, I think. So it's still very early. People are still sort of warming up and all the rest of it, but just because it's not loud, it doesn't mean they didn't enjoy it. Just because so it's a tricky one, and it's hard to judge how well a performance went or how well people enjoyed it based on the the sound, the reaction. But it's such a good question, because I perform lots of different stuff. Sword swallowing is just one of the stunts that I do. So you sword swallowing and whip cracking and fire eating, and I lift weights with my ears and all sorts of crazy and bizarre things. And it's interesting because you can come off stage and someone can say, like, oh, the sword swallowing, I couldn't watch when you was doing that, or that's so crazy or whatever. And then the next person, the person sitting next to him could be like, oh no, the sword swallowing, that wasn't a problem. But when he did that thing with the bear trap, or like that was, and everyone takes something different away, and that's the really sort of nice. It's kind of like it's a personal experience for the person watching the show.
And how do you feel, because they say, and I've done character comedy and other performers, and you'll come off and go, well, I had a good show, I got it right with that one. Is it the same with the sort of stuff you're doing? Can I say stunts? Is that, did you go, yeah, that was a good one, I got it right, it was bang on, I felt good?
Yeah, you get, there are those shows that just everything that you say is hilarious, or everything just runs so smoothly, and then you get the shows where you can say a joke, because the stuff that I do is dangerous, and some of it's slightly scary, and some of it's very there's a lot of tension involved, but I like to split that up with comedy. I do tell a lot of jokes, there's some physical comedy in there, just almost like keep it like a roller coaster of emotions, basically. Try and get people to be absolutely on the edge of the seat one second, and then give a joke, and all of a sudden it splits it up. The other, I can't even remember. Sorry, it's very busy where we're at.
No, we are. But just to say, we've just had to hide ourselves away to find somewhere to do this interview. We've been looking for rooms, knocking on, go, excuse me, can we go? And it's like, so finally we've actually found what we thought was a quiet area, and then suddenly the public found us.
Yes.
But so let's just recap, just to because and you've only just come off stage helping Katy Trickett, who's now just for walking on glass. I'll have all these pictures on the podcast site, everybody, so do look out for it. So Johnny, you've done, so apart from sword swallowing, you're lifting weights, there was a clip of you drilling into your nose. I've seen that one. The bear trap, which was like, I couldn't watch that, but then I had to. Pulling a light aircraft, you've done that one, I've seen that one.
Yeah.
Shooting a crossbow from behind your back through an apple, so Johnny was unsighted, and you're a multiple Guinness World Record holder. So let's just before I go back to the beginning of where it all started, just tell us about the Guinness Book of World Records. What are you currently world record holder at?
Okay, so the Guinness Book of Records. So I currently have 14 records to my name, and they all revolve around the sort of stunts and the props and things like that I use on stage. So there's a lot of swords, there's fire, there's chainsaws, there's whips, there's all sorts of crazy, bizarre stuff. So things like, for example, chainsawing an apple out of my mouth. The most apples chainsawed in a minute. Chainsawing an apple out of someone else's
So
mouth.
when you say chainsaws, you've got the apple in your mouth, and you are putting the chainsaw to slice it in two,
yes.
So it comes right. Okay, so that's so you hold that one.
Yeah, that one. That one's a very good one for getting very close to your face.
Right.
So you have to really pay attention on that one.
Is that one where you have to I've got to concentrate at this point?
Yes, but it's not the most nervous stunt that I do.
Yeah.
The one that makes me the most nervous is chainsaw juggling.
Right, okay.
I still get nervous. It doesn't matter how many years you do it for. It's just because you know if it goes wrong, it goes very wrong.
Right, okay. And have you had accidents in the past? No.
Knock on wood. Yeah, no accidents yet. Nothing serious. But I do. I mean, it is my full-time job, so I do take it very seriously. I practice every day. I'm always learning new things. So it's you hopefully get all the teething problems out before you hit the stage with it.
So you have to practice every day. You have to have a bit of a workout, and if you don't, you'd feel uncomfortable about doing on stage.
Yeah, exactly. You can never be well enough prepared. It only takes if you're a couple of weeks out of practice juggling, it's all right if it's a club or a ball, but when it's a chainsaw, you're asking for trouble.
And there's no special effects there. That is a rotating chain, and it's right. Okay, it is as it seems on stage.
Yeah.
Which are you going to do that later?
I'm not this year, unfortunately, because the problem is to keep it fresh, to keep things new.
Yeah.
So I'm always constantly sort of researching and looking, and I spend a lot of time at B&Q looking around the tool section. Always trying to sort of work out new things or change things or hopefully improve on my acts. But yeah, just to keep it new and fresh.
Because that's the question. One of the questions I do ask. Yeah, how do you keep it fresh? So I like that. Wandering around B&Q. Do you watch other acts similar to yourself and say, okay, they're doing something, I can do something a little bit different from them? Is it a sort of beg, borrow and steal from other types?
It's yes and no. Whatever you think of, the chances are.
Sorry, we're it's in a busy hotel here. Sorry, carry on, Johnny. You were saying, so yeah, we're trying to come up with different. The question was, if you see another act, is it a sort of beg, borrow and steal thing if you see something you like?
So yes and no. Depending, whatever you think of, the chances are there's someone out there that's doing it before you or better, or it doesn't matter what it is. There's such a vast pool of stuff that's out there. It's very rare that you come up with something that genuinely is brand new. So it's just a case of you might see something and you might see someone perform something and you think, oh, that's good, but I could actually tweak that. I could make that better, or I could, what would be good instead of using, I don't know, an escape over, spikes. Maybe you could do an escape over something else, or maybe underwater, and it might spark something in your brain that just all of a sudden gets the creative juices flowing. And the same with music or books or anything.
It's exactly so. Everything's derivative. There's really no original sort of art. They say that with film plots. But let's go back to before it started. How did you get? What was your first sort of dipping your toe moment into the sort of world that you do now?
So in school, it sort of started, and I learned how to juggle, and I was like balancing tables and chairs on my chin.
And how old were you?
Oh, so I must have been 16, something like that,
yeah,
around 16.
And was there what? Did you see something on telly? Was it a particular something that tweaked, or you just I'm going to do that?
I don't really know. It just sort of happened, and I was never like, I want to be a performer, or I want to be in the circus, or I want to do. It was just sort of, hey, look at this, and I've learned how to do this. This is fun and cool, and I learned how to juggle. And I was quite a late comer to juggling, because you get people that have juggled at a very, very young age, and they're absolutely, excellent. But I started by juggling balls. Showed my friends, and they were like, that's pretty cool, but can you learn clubs? So I learned how to juggle clubs, and my friends were like, yeah, that's pretty cool, but can you juggle fire? So learn how to
as
juggle
you move
fire.
on to fire. So and as you progress, they slowly get a little bit harder, a little bit more. So who were these mates? Were these other jugglers?
No, just such good friends. They all want to right now juggle fire, juggle knives, juggle chainsaws, and it just sort of spiraled out of control, I guess. And one thing led to another, and next thing I've got all these bizarre things that I'm doing, all these stunts, and I'm like, hang on a minute, I could turn this into a proper show and see if we can.
And what do you remember your first show when you'd like got and Johnny Strange? So that's when did you come up with your stage name?
So basically the first show I do remember, it was back in 2009.
Right.
Much different from what I'm doing now. But again, same with the sort of dangerous stunts, and there was lots of balancing and some juggling and some fire and things like that. But like I say,
and the music as well, because music's quite important, especially with the 5 performers we've just seen and the tracks that you select, and they are quite purposely selected. So, can you remember the music you were using?
I think it was some Prodigy at the time.
Oh,
actually,
okay.
it was very rock. It was a very rock and roll show. Yeah. Whereas now I'm all suited and booted, the tweed and the quips and the funny little there was none of that. It was full on rock and roll. Lots of performing in rock clubs and that kind of thing.
As you hear, we've just got some local guests booking in. So
welcome to Blackpool.
Welcome to Blackpool. There was the music, and it was basically rock and roll, and you just kind of. How long was it lasting, the actual act?
I think we did about half an hour for the first show,
right?
And we did that a little while, and like I say, we were performing in rock clubs and that kind of thing. And then I decided, like, if you're going to take this seriously, if you want to do it as an actual proper job, you need to sort of just change what you're doing and just get smart with it. Because at the end of the day, there's no show without the business. So.
And did you have someone mentoring you, or no? This is all pretty much self-taught.
Yeah, I was lucky that I was in a lot of bands and things like that when I was younger, so I was already sort of how to book gigs, especially in the rock club scene. But it came to a point where it's like, you know what, if you want to do this properly and full time and makes comfortable living off it, you've got to go where the money is, and you've got to go corporate. You've got to sort of. Get your regular work in and start getting those bigger contracts and
build it from there. But then you've also got to start devising new acts. So like I've just seen you today do the Straight Jacket act. So how did you then teach yourself that? Was it again a YouTube clip, or you thought, I'll just do it?
That one actually was, I bought a straight jacket and I got put in it, and I was like, okay, try and work out how to get out of it. It really was just sort of trial and error, but there's not really a sort of school you can go to, because it's not really circus. There's elements of circus in what I do. There's elements of like Sideshow and Freakshow. And
how do you define yourself? What would you call yourself? I'm going to have to put this on the podcast, and you'll get a Facebook message from me going, what am I calling you? Because there's so many different. So what you define yourself?
I've been called a lot of different things. It's stupid. No. I've been called. The act itself gets called a lot of different things, and like I say, it does cover sort of comedy. There's circus. There's danger and that sort of thing. But the one that sort of sticks for me that I quite like is being comedy daredevil.
Okay, I like that.
There is that element of comedy, but also it's daring stunts, and it's not circusy enough to be classed as a circus. It's not it's not all sideshow, so it can't really be sideshow, and it's not freaky enough to be a freak show, and so it sort of covers. It's like an umbrella term, I suppose. But I quite like it. It's nice. It's catchy.
What's been the hardest discipline to learn? Because I'd spoken to another sword swallow, and you were saying earlier there's not many around. Is it 60 in this country, or world?
As far as we know, in the world, basically.
That's incredible. You just think there would be a lot more, but
there probably is. So I mean, if you go, I've never been to India. I've not been to India yet, but I really want to go because a lot of the stuff, the fire eating, the walking on glass, the bed of nails, the sword swallowing, it all basically came from India.
It comes from India, and we're going back centuries.
Yeah.
And which part, and how did you find out about that?
Really just by accident,
Yeah.
honestly, just by accident. But I mean, I said there's around 60 sword swallows. There is an association, so there's the International Sword Swallows Association,
Oh, right, okay.
believe it or not. And they have a big sort of database of people that are currently performing and people that have used to perform and all the rest of it. But I'm sure there is many, many, many more, especially in India, that just no one knows about. We don't, we haven't met. And
So you'd love to go to India to see the true sort of that profession
see
did.
how it used to, like how they do it,
Do it.
and how I do it, and we, it's the same thing but different, and it's so fascinating that people's take on the same on a stunt that's been around for centuries, but performed by two different people is completely different.
So everybody will have their sort of own spin on, and a bit like with the barrels that you did. That's kind of your version.
Yeah.
And Mr. Freak was one guy, a sword swallower I spoke to. Now, he was talking about the reflex, the gag reflex you had to break through. You have to go through this cycle. He was talking about this 35-day cycle it takes to break. Well, this was his particular way. How long did it take for you to be able to swallow stuff effectively? How did you start off? I think he started off on coat hangers and things like that. How did you do it?
Yeah, so everybody's different, and everyone has their own sort of tale to tell. The usual way that people will learn, and this is not a how-to guide, obviously, but most people will learn with a wire coat hanger. They're actually not the best thing to use at all because the coat hangers tend to be very cheap quality steel. They also tend to be coated in like plastic or rubber, and as you straighten it, that flakes off. And if you get that flaked off inside you, that's not very good. And again, with the poor quality steel, that's not very good. Putting anything in your body is really not a very good idea anyway. But at least make sure it's sort of clean and stainless steel and good grade sort of quality stuff.
Course,
that is also the way that I learn.
You seem to do a lot by I'm just going to try this now.
It really is, yeah. I mean, sword swallowing for me, I was already performing. I was already whip cracking and again fire eating, juggling and straight jackets and all the rest of it. I was already out there performing, and I saw it and I just thought that's really cool. And I mean, I've always been fascinated with the sideshows and freak shows, and I run a sideshow as well. And it's classed as, so you have sort of three main types of genres of performers, if you will, in the sideshow. You've got the natural born freaks, so you've got, dwarves and people tall, people that stretchy skin, and people that were born different. You've got the modified freaks, so this is like pierced people, tattooed men, tattooed women, that kind of thing. People that have changed the body to become a freak, a modified freak. And then you have working acts. And a working act is a fire eater, a juggler, an acrobat, contortionist, that kind of thing. And sword swallowing is regarded as being the most sort of, out of those three, that's the order of the sort of most requested and the sort of top being paid sort of thing.
Okay.
So if you're a natural born freak, and then it's down to the modified freaks, and then it's down to like a working act. So you're at the bottom of the run, basically.
Right, really? So they prefer the modified freaks. They like to see a physical person in some way has changed. Is this corporate work we're talking?
Well, we're talking sort of the freak shows. We're talking hundreds of years ago, and it's still they are still about. There are sideshows and freak shows still about, just not the same as they were. They're few and far between now. But they are still out there. It's sort of.
And the sideshow you do, is that a combination of those categories that you've described that you will then put on at a corporate event or private birthday party or whoever asked for it. Is that right?
Yeah, we do like a lot of festivals and that
Yeah.
sort of thing. 'Cause it's a tent. We call it 10 in 1. Basically, there's 10 acts in one show. It could be more, it could be less, but that's the sort of 10 in 1 is the term. And yeah, it could be snake charmers and sword swallowers.
So yeah, who's the modified sort of body part people that you have then? We've is it Ariel Firecracker? You've worked with her before. She's snake charmer, and then there's Katy Trickett. She does walking on glass. What other acts have you got?
So there's Katy Trickett's the amazing rubber girl.
Yes.
So she will squeeze herself into a tiny cube, a tiny perspex cube, and squeezing herself through tennis rackets and things like that. Of course, is Ariel that you mentioned, and she's a snake charmer. She also does fire. Obviously, I'm the sword swallower, but I've also got my ears. I've had my ears surgically stretched, and I lift beer barrels and weights and things like that.
So we've sitting now. Yeah, you've got two of those. What do you describe? Sort of hoop? Well, not hoops. What are they called?
So stretched ears or sort of gauges or that.
Okay.
Depends.
And this is so you can obviously hook a chain up, and I've seen a clip of you actually lifting with your ears as well. So how do you then work out with something like lifting with your ears that they're not going to just rip off? Basically, it's in so far that we've chatted, you seem to just work things out by I'll just give it a go.
It really is trial and error. It's funny because I think it was 2014, I could be wrong, but 2014 here, I actually set a record for the heaviest weight lifted with pierced ears.
Oh, really? Okay.
I broke my current record, which funnily enough hadn't been broken.
And how heavy was the original record that you did?
I can't remember exactly. I think it was around, I want to say around 25, 28 kilograms. I can't.
No, that's fine. So 28 kilograms, so that's about 14, 15 bags of sugar. Is that, just to give it some light, I think it's 2 kilograms a bag of sugar. So about a good 16, 17 bags of sugar. And what was the new record?
Oh, I honestly...
About 30, 35. So you've upped it.
I upped the ante a little bit, yeah. But I am sort of, I think, ready to try again. But that's what you say. It is all trial and error because, you don't have the same sort of nerves in the bottom of your earlobe. So basically, if you haven't seen... I'm not the only person in the world that does this act. But if you're listening, and you haven't seen anyone do this act. It's basically you have piercing in your ears, and it creates a hole, a large hole that's permanently in your ears, and that's where you can place a hook or a carabiner through the hole, and you're lifting whatever you're lifting weights using just the ear lobe. And
when you're fully loaded up and that's stretching and you're pulling, is it painful? Are you trying to fight what's going on?
It's very strange because you don't really feel the pain in your ear lobes. You feel them in your ears, you feel them around and sort of down your neck and that sort of thing where your sort of sideburns would be. You can feel the strain there, but your ear lobes don't tend to have the same sort of nerves. You're not used to a feeling there. So at some point they could just snap like an elastic band. The problem is, if one snaps, then all the weight's on the other, and the other one is going to snap.
So I didn't realise. So that's the potential problem. That one goes, then the both will go.
Both will go, yeah. And you'd never really know where that point is. All you can do is just increase slowly, and hope that you stop before you reach the limit.
And how do you get in touch with the Guinness Book of World Records? Do you just phone them up and say, I can lift this with my ears? Will you come down? And then do they send someone down?
Basically, yeah. It takes about 12 months. So you have to apply for a record. Get the guidelines. Everything's obviously has to be official. They have to research and find out, these are the guidelines. Or if you're breaking an existing record, you have to contact them and say, what are the guidelines? They'll tell you, and then you have to get someone to obviously document it. So usually videos and photos. If you're lucky or if you can afford it, they'll send someone down to actually verify everything.
Right. Have you had that actually? Someone they've actually come down. So that means you're pretty special then.
Well, I did the CBBC Officially Amazing TV show as well.
Oh, brilliant!
So that was great. Fun. We did a whip cracking record, and that was.
Tell us about whip cracking, because again, I think everybody remembers Indiana Jones. That famous, that's the only time we've ever sort of seen it. So, what's the different types of whip crack, and what are you actually doing? And is it the length of the whip? Is it the loudness of the crack? What's the record?
So, well, the record was for the most eggs whipped with a bullwhip in 1 minute.
An egg.
An egg.
So the eggs were on a stand.
They were like on a table
Right.
in little egg cups.
Right.
And what was really nice about it is we were filming in super slow motion. So it's basically, I think they're called phantom cameras, and it's so slow the egg explodes. There's some great footage on YouTube of it. But yeah, everything's super slow motion, super crystal clear. It looked fantastic.
So and how many eggs did you crack?
I think that was 14, but that record has actually been broken, I believe.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah.
So does that make you a bit annoyed now?
No, not at all. I mean, the records are there to be broken.
Right.
If if you don't want your record to be broken, don't set it.
Right,
Basically.
that's a nice.
Yeah.
And that was 14 eggs in a minute, was it? 16?
I think it was either a minute or 3 minutes, maybe. Or I get all. I know that's right. I think it might have been a minute because the most swords swallowed was in 3 minutes.
All right, okay. So have you done that record as well?
That record as
my!
well.
That's the amount of swords.
The amount of times, not the physical amount of swords,
Right.
but how many
In,
times.
out,
you
in,
can-
out.
Yeah.
Right, and how many times was that?
Oh, now you're asking.
I will bring the Guinness Book of Records with me next time. But we're talking 15, 20 times within the space of a minute, was that? Or
was
2 minutes?
It was in 3 minutes actually. That
right,
one.
okay.
And it was. I was breaking someone else's record, and I can't remember what I got, but it was. That sounds really bad, doesn't it?
No,
but I can't remember.
Well,
my
you've
own
got
record.
so many. I don't. But and what's it like when you actually when the adjudicator turns to you and go, "You are now the new world record holder"? How does that feel?
It is really nice, but you know, it's such a bizarre feeling because I've been in quite a few books. I think I've been in the last 4 Guinness books and other little bits with some playing cards, and your face is on a deck of playing cards, and it's really weird.
Oh, well, that's good. Really, you got your own. Hey, that's good. And what record was that for?
I think that may have been a chainsaw record.
Okay, right.
And also maybe a bed of nails record. I think he's in there, but it's it's very strange. You open the book and you're in it.
You're in it.
And I've got my friends. They've got kids and things like that now, and they always get the Guinness book for Christmas, and they're like, "So you're in
Well, I'm
it."
going to get it. And do they then send you something? Do you get a plaque, a medal, something to stick on the wall at home?
You get a certificate. So when you get an official Guinness World Record, that's it's all been adjudicated, and they basically give you the thumbs up. You get a certificate, Guinness World Record certificate, all framed up. But what I really want is when you do one of the Guinness TV shows, so not officially amazing, but the Guinness World Record TV show, you get a medal. If you get a Guinness World Record, you get a medal, and that's really what I want.
That's like the Blue Peter badge.
It
Do you
is.
want that particular?
It really
and
is.
is that filmed in America? Do they where is that so often on some channel?
I think there's 3 at the minute. I think China's the biggest one.
All right.
And I think Italy does a big one, and maybe America still does one. We used to have one in the UK, but I think that stopped in possibly the 90s, but I could be wrong on that.
Because up until that point, it was Record Breakers with Roy Castle. You must have. Well, how old are you, Johnny? Sorry.
29 now.
29. So I'm a child of the 80s, so I remember that programme. They probably stopped that by the time, so you might not have seen that.
The one I remember is Don't Try This at Home.
Yes,
I remember that one.
Was
Yeah.
There's a great record that me and my friend Peter Slater, who's a character comedian, and it's Cozy Powell, a rock drummer from I think Rainbow and Deep Purple, and he breaks a record with Roy Castle of hitting drums, as 100 drums. But you can see the guy's just stepped off a plane from a gig. He's out of his head. He doesn't know where he is. And he's suddenly in a recording studio with Roy Castle, Norris McWhirter, and he's got to try and hit 100 drums. It's on YouTube. It's worth watching because he misses half of them because he's probably stoned off his head. But it's one of the funniest sort of like, and Roy Castle then just goes, "Hey, he's done it!" And it's like, did they ever send the application form in for that one? But it's like, so. But that's so I suppose in a way now, when you're booking gigs, you can put on the head of the letterhead, official world record holder.
Yeah, which it is nice. But I mean, at the same time, it's a tricky one because you can have all the records in the world, but it won't make you a great performer.
Yeah.
Because it is different from being on stage. Being able to go somewhere and practice and rehearse, and it is very different. But yeah, I mean, it's a great
I'm watching you today, and just to say, Johnny's a brilliant performer. Do not try any of this at home. I'll do the classic warning, because it really don't. Johnny knows what he's doing, and he's been doing it for years. And also we've talked about some great. Your first gig. What's the worst gig that you can remember, or somewhere where it has just gone wrong? And is there any moment where you've gone, oh shit, how am I going to get out of this? Or the fire's knocks, or something that's gone wrong, or your hands got caught in the bear trap?
Yeah, luckily that's never happened. Not yet. I've never been got by the bear trap.
Right.
I mean, it's interesting because I don't actually know what would happen if I did.
Where did you get the bear trap?
I actually had it shipped over from America.
Right.
Yeah,
eBay?
No, unfortunately no. But
and did you need special paperwork for something like that?
believe it or not, no.
No? Okay.
I mean, it did get stopped at customs, and it did cost me a small fortune to get it through. But no, it's. I mean, it's illegal to hunt with them in the UK.
Right. Okay.
You cannot hunt with them. But obviously, if you're not using it for hunting, then it's totally legal to own one. The same with crossbows. Again, you'd think you need some sort of paperwork, but it's totally legal to own one. You can't obviously go walking around down the street with it, but you can own one. But yeah, with the bear trap, it's again basically the bear trap. I'm not the only person that performs this stunt, but I place a set of bear trap on the table, and I put my hand inside the trap, press the trigger player, and then remove it before the jaws can snap shut. So it's all about the speed. It's all getting your timing right and your speed right, getting your reactions up. But yeah, it's never got me.
It's never got me.
I mean, if it does, it's got teeth on it, so they're going to go through the hand. I reckon it will break my fingers. But I mean, fingers crossed I never find out. But you never know.
It's how apt to say fingers crossed, because it's like, but yeah, I know. It's. I saw it. It's incredible. So have you had a moment with any other the chainsaw or something where you've caught your chin, or you're pretty.
Again, it's. Just a lot of practice, and I do take, I might act like I'm winging it on stage, or it's all a bit of a joke, but in reality I do take it very seriously, and I get my my hours in practicing, and things can take 2, 3, 4 years before they come from rehearsal to the stage. So it's a long process.
It's a very long process. So it's about that amount of time, and when do you think when's that moment when you go, okay, I will be comfortable enough to do this in front of an audience? Do you check it with someone else and get them to watch it, or is it your own decision?
It's tricky. I think there is a famous saying of don't practice something until you can get it right, practice until you can't get it wrong.
Nice.
And I think that's it's a good rule to live by. And then once you have the actual act, you can then turn it into a routine, and then it's sort of trial and error, swap things around, try out jokes. Oh, maybe that wasn't quite right, or I could change that, or put that in a different place. And ask people's feedbacks and film, see how the reaction. But it is a minefield though, because you can have a joke and it can be hilarious 50 times, and then on the 51st show no one laughs, and there's no rhyme, no reason. It just nobody laughed, and you think, oh, is that rubbish? Should I take that joke out? But if it was funny when you wrote it, it should still technically be funny all the time, but it is also nice to change things up a little bit.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Well, listen, thanks for chatting to us today, and I appreciate you taking your time out, because you're organising a lot of the acts as well, so that's part of the TACCon today. How many acts have you sort of got on the rostrum at the moment?
What, today here?
Yeah.
I think about 6 or 7 of us today. But I'm sort of... I'm performing, and I'm sort of stage managing, and I'm making sure everyone's all right and everyone's happy, and so making sure people are working and turning up and doing the shows and all the rest of it. So it's nice. It's a nice weekend, and like I say, it's my 5th year here, so I must be doing something right.
Your 5th year, it is. It's an incredible atmosphere. You make the conference as well, the convention. It's great to see all your acts and yourself. Thank you again for inviting us up here. And my one last question for the podcast, and I always ask is who do you think I should interview for the next episode or in future episodes? Who do you think I should have on the show?
That is a great question. There are many great acts out there, and I work with many great performers, but I would have to say the amazing Rubber Girl, Katy Trickett. Yeah.
Absolutely. She was performing today, and I will certainly will get in touch with Katy. And well, she's in the room when I get back there, isn't she? So I'll grab her. She was absolutely amazing. I must admit, she did the tennis racket. She got through a tennis racket. Unbelievable. And will she do the box thing tomorrow? Getting into
She performed here last year,
Right.
And she did the box last year. And we always like to try and do things different, try and keep it fresh, try and keep it new. So no, she's not going to be doing the box this year. But she has all sorts of other dangerous and
brilliant.
bizarre stunts.
Brilliant. I'll chat to Katy. We'll get her on the show. Johnny, thank you very much again for today, and thank you for coming on the show.
No, thank you for coming down. Yeah, thank you very much.
You've been listening to Funny Peculiar. Tune in next week. More great guests.